You're listening to Thursday Night Tailgate with Chris Mascaro and Bob Lazari, where NFL legends live on. Back to you, boys.
Hand me the lot.
And now back with us here on Thursday Night Tailgate as our next guest, former Steelers punter Craig Colquitt. Let me remind you about Craig's background. He's from Knoxville, Tennessee, played his college ball at the University of Tennessee, became their punter from 1975 to 1977. And in 1976 and 77, he was named to the All-SEC team. His senior season, he was second in the nation in average yards per punt at 44.7 yards. He was drafted in the third round by the Pittsburgh Steelers in 1978, and he kicked in the NFL from 78 to 1987 for the Steelers and the Colts. Helped the Steelers win back-to-back Super Bowl championships in 78 and 79. In 2009, he was inducted into the Greater Knoxville Sports Hall of Fame, and we are honored that he is back with us again tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Craig, Chris, and Bob, thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, Craig.
Hey, Chris and Bob, thanks for the invitation. I appreciate it. That was awesome listening to JT. It's amazing. I can be around some of the guys and look at them, and I say, yeah, we're getting older, but I can close my eyes and listen to the voices, and there's something about our voices that don't change. That JT's always been an entrepreneur. That was fun to listen to. I'm not surprised. He reached out to me this week, and now we're friends on Facebook. I look forward to seeing him in the near future.
And Craig, to that end, I was curious to get your memories. I know that you guys had a couple of seasons together there at the tail end of those championship years. You're coming in, and JT had a couple of years before he moved on and then retired. But what do you remember about watching JT?
JT's just one of those people that was all over the field. I think he's a reflection of Chuck Noll and the scouting ability that the combine had at that time and before free agency too. The mindset back then was the team lasts as long as you can for the team concept. So everybody, it was just such a unit. In fact, the first round draft choice, Ron Johnson, died 2 Tuesdays ago. And, as soon as I heard it, I didn't have an immediate reaction, but then all of a sudden it just hit me. Ron Johnson, his first round draft choice my year in 78. We even had a little nucleus, but, JT, Ron Johnson, they were defensive backs, and I just loved hanging around those guys and listening to them. But JT added another element of being this entrepreneur. I think he was in the Burger King and maybe Wendy's business back then, and I remember him telling me too, he didn't sleep 4 hours a night because he had too much brain energy. Just an incredible guy, but an incredible football player too.
And Craig, a couple of weeks ago, as I was looking down your Twitter feed, you tweeted out that Jack Lambert was your defensive hero. He was mine, one of my favorite defensive players of all time as well. But, talk about, what you remember about Lambert and why he was your defensive hero.
Jack, he set the tone of a game. He was for everybody. Everybody kind of looked to Jack to get everything going because, Jack was, 6'5", 228-pound linebacker. He should have been paying a forward in the NBA and slow as Christmas. But his instincts and his drive just to own the ball was, he was Terry Bradshaw on the defense. Just one of those guys that made a huge difference. So JT the same way. It was just fun to watch. Sometimes it was hard to watch because they punished everybody. You're not going to do this against the Steelers kind of attitude. So for me, it was a men's football team.
And Craig, kind of bringing it back, to you got drafted by the Steelers in the third round, which is very high and very rare for a punter. Were you surprised that you got drafted that high? Were you expecting to go, towards the top half of the draft? And did that put added pressure on you to prove why you got drafted so high?
Yeah, good question. Number one, no, I never anticipated being drafted that high. But when I was drafted that high and into that organization, it was, to me, it was relaxing. And how I can say that is, it was almost like I felt honored, if that makes sense, that they would do that. They would spend a choice like that on me. In fact, my feelings were hurt when I got to Pittsburgh at camp. There were 5 other punters there, so I was going, man, I thought I had this job in the bag. Now I'm going to have to work for it. But, no, it was 2 ways of thinking. I thought I'd be 12th round. I think that was the last round at that time, but, it was exciting, just exciting. I think I told you last time I wanted to be actually a Cowboy, but when Pittsburgh drafted me and the PR director, Joe Gordon, called me and told me who was on the team, like Jack Lambert, Terry Bradshaw, and Franco Harris, and went through all these names, I said, wow, I didn't think of it that way. So it was a great place to be. So I can go back to that before free agency, concept. That's Chuck Noll fit that perfect. He knew how to build that dynasty.
Bob, questions for Craig?
It's good to speak with you again, Craig. I'll ask you what I asked JT about that first training camp in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. More memories from yourself. Talk about the facilities. What do you most remember from those weeks you spent in Latrobe?
Well, the main thing I remember is how many people were there when they finally opened up the practices to the public. Because I didn't have a feel for what it would be like in that kind of environment, in the professional environment. Because at University of Tennessee, the only crowd I saw was game day, or the orange and white game. But when they opened the practices up to Pittsburgh, there was 10, 15,000 people there. And if there was a loud hit or somebody cutting up, it was, people were standing up, giving ovations. It was an amazing event. And everybody was so close as a group. It's hard to describe that to people, what a football team environment's like. If you all played on teams where everybody's just so close anyway, but then to be in that kind of limelight, it was humbling, but it was exciting too. My head grew quite a bit.
Craig, you got that first year in the league, you were able to spend it with Roy Gerela. If I'm not mistaken, that was his last year in Pittsburgh. We were so familiar with him, and Chris remembers the Gerela's Gorillas, and it was just electrical back in the day. What was the time like that you spent with him, and tell us more about what kind of guy he was?
That's really good too. Roy was critical to me fitting in there, because Roy he would talk, but if he said something, it was usually I needed to listen. He put it all into perspective, because he'd seen it all. He'd, been very successful and, had the bad games and had the crowd on him and against him. So he was able to help me make it through that mental transition, which is now getting paid to play. And so Roy was critical. He was a godsend for me to fit into the game.
And Craig, you not only punted, but you were the holder as well on field goals. So I was curious, what were the worst conditions that you ever had to hold in? Because I imagine some of the, frigid and rainy and snowy games in Pittsburgh, and when you were on the road late in the season, made it pretty challenging to catch and place the ball down properly and quickly, particularly with the game on the line.
Oh, yeah. You did not know what you were going to get in Pittsburgh. One of my favorite stories, though, is an away game, and it was actually exhibition when we rode buses to Cleveland and back when we played in Cleveland. Went to Cleveland on a Friday to play an exhibition game in Cleveland, and I hadn't seen any good weather in Cleveland my career so far. Get to Cleveland, on the Friday. It was 82 degrees, not a cloud in the sky, beautiful. And I'm going, great. We're going to have a good game finally in Cleveland. Wake up the next day, the rain is coming in sideways. It's like 62 degrees. Wind is crazy, and the field was a mud bath. So you didn't know. And Pittsburgh could be the same way. Fortunately, we were on artificial turf, but that you had to be careful. Artificial turf for falling down, and that's kind of what ended Roy Jurella's career. The slipperiness of the turf, he couldn't muster that, how much of a dramatic lean he came in to the ball. So, but yeah, it was when in Knoxville, the coldest game I probably ever played in was 43 degrees. In Pittsburgh, it could be 17 with snow. So you just don't know. You know how it is.
And Craig, we're so familiar with, teams trying to ice the kicker, but I have to imagine it has to impact you as well as the holder, because now you got time to think about, having to catch the ball and put it down, and boy, don't mess this up, and the negative thoughts start creeping in, I would imagine, in your head as the holder, just like it would have with Matt Barr or Roy Jurella or those guys having to make that kick. So during those timeouts, what's going through your head? What are you trying to do so the pressure doesn't get to you as the holder?
For me, no, I did not even talk to these guys. I mean, Roy Jurella, Gary Anderson, Matt Barr, Dave Trout, I held for 4 different kickers, and those guys went into a zone. I knew not to talk to them, so I had to think about, how can I make it through the next 15 seconds? So, but it was easier because I knew even if I screwed up, they'd blame it on the kicker. So I was good with that.
Bob, more for Craig?
Hey, Craig, I had referred to you at the beginning of the show. The Colquitt crew was the first family of NFL punters. We know about your sons and how talented they were. And talk more about their upbringing, Craig. I mean, did they play a lot of soccer? It wasn't like you forced them to become NFL punters. Was it just a natural progression, having seen what you did?
It was that. Dustin really, with the Chiefs, in fact, I'm in Kansas City now, camp for him, and Britton started yesterday. But I did the football thing. Britton played football his sophomore and senior year. Dustin didn't play till his senior year, but really what happened is there was no interest coming towards them for soccer. But I could tell Dustin and Britton, just for their natural athletic ability, they could learn what I did, but more than that they could handle the crowd, the pressure. They like that kind of atmosphere. Their egos are huge, and I mean that humbly. They really love what they do. I knew they wanted to perform in front of a crowd. So I knew there came a time when I went, I want to spend time with this. And I pushed them because they didn't smell it at first, but when they got a smell of it at the University of Tennessee, they wanted to see how far they could take it. So I pushed it too hard only when I knew I needed to pull it back. And
how about your nephew, Jimmy, Craig? He punted in '85 with Seattle as well, and spent a year in the league. You must be so proud of all these guys. It's just a freak thing how 3 close relatives can all be in the same league.
Yeah, and that's a good thing to say anyway. I tell people all the time, you don't know who's in your house. You don't know who you're bringing up, and you don't know who's watching. So be a good example, because Dustin and Britton told me, people were always talking about my background, and I played, and Jimmy, my nephew, the same thing. So it was a blessing that they were paying closer attention than I thought. And Jimmy probably was the strongest of all of us. He's 6'4" and 200. I think he was like 220 something pounds at that in college. But I think as far as in front of a paying crowd, or being paid to do it, it might have been a little bit tougher for Jimmy. We hadn't figured that one out yet. We talk about it, but we hadn't figured out why he wasn't able to cross that line.
Craig, just a couple more before we let you go. And speaking of your alma mater, the University of Tennessee, wanted to get your thoughts on them for this upcoming season. Last year was a bit of a struggle. They went 4-8, didn't win a game in the SEC. How do you feel about where that program is at in this upcoming season?
Well, it kind of goes back to the Jack Lambert thing. I played defensive end. I had so much more fun on defense than I did as a running back. So there's something about the defensive mind that's I really enjoy, and Pruitt is a defensive mindset, and I think he's got a couple of championships or 3 championships I think under his belt. His dad was a coach, so he's used to winning. And that's what Tennessee needs to feel and taste again. So I know I'm more involved now than I've ever been. So I'm looking forward to the rebirth of the Big R.
And Craig, we partner with the NFL Alumni Association, and they recently tweeted out a story about how your grandson got you to go from stretching your punting leg to stretching your imagination, which is referencing your book, JoJo, What Happened to Your Hair. Do you mind sharing that story
yeah.
and then reminding our listeners about your book?
Oh, I appreciate that very much. Yeah, Britton, when he was playing with the Broncos, I was out in Denver enjoying a breakfast with his son, his oldest son. He was, I think, 4 years old at the time. And out of the blue, he just said, "Hey, JoJo, what happened to your hair?" And well, first I was a little bit offended. You hate to see something go off the body. But I went, I need to do something with this. And as time went along, and I didn't work with the company I was working with anymore, and I decided, what, I'm gonna reinvent myself. So I went with the publishing side of it and developed a children's book called JoJo, What Happened to Your Hair? And I've got it on CraigColquitt.com, and it's selling well. I'd like it to be a New York Times bestseller, but that's not going to happen, but I've met so many people because of that. In fact, I'm right now formed a group to go into Christian film, production, and really excited about that. So the book, CraigColquitt.com, is just a really fun thing to do. I did the artwork too, and the writing in it, the text. So I appreciate you talking about that.
Absolutely. And Craig, let our listeners know, how can they stay up to date with all the great things that you're doing over social media as well?
I'm on Twitter and I'm on Facebook. CraigColquitt.com is my website, and I'm right now I've got some old blogs in there, but now with this new venture into films, I'm going to flex my muscles on my website a little bit and reach out about what we're doing as a group. So I've met some tremendous people. We got a great idea for a first film. So CraigColquitt.com, and I'll start putting out a lot of information going forward.
Well, Craig, it has been really wonderful, having you back on the show again with us tonight and getting to know you over the last several months. And we hope you'll continue to come back and share more of your stories and your insights for what's going on around, whether it's Tennessee football, the Steelers, and keeping us updated on the movies and the other things that you're getting involved with. It's been a real pleasure getting to know you and having you back tonight.
Thanks, Chris and Bob. I appreciate it. Go Vols, go Chiefs, Browns, and Steelers. It's hard for me to keep up. There it is.
Let's spread it out.
Thank you, Craig. Take care. All the best to you and your family. We look forward to catching up again soon.
Thanks, guys. God bless you. See you.
Bye. Thank you.
See you, Craig. That is former Volunteers and Steelers punter Craig Colquitt. What a great guy, Bob. I enjoy having him on the show. He's a lot of fun.
It still boggles my mind how that many family members could have made it to the NFL. 2 sons, that's just uncharted territory, because punters like that and a nephew that did the same, and they were all very good. And so they could probably make a lot of money in a different career just raising punters, right?
Indeed. All right, folks, coming up here in hour number 2 on Thursday Night Tailgate, we're going to be joined by Wendell Davis and Ron Lippick. And before Wendell joins us, I want to give a shout-out to our friends over at the Gridiron Greats organization. Folks, please help support a wonderful cause that's taking care of the guys who left so much of themselves out on the field. And remember, these are the guys who played back when they still had to get off-season jobs to support themselves and their families. It's organizations like this one that was started by Mike Ditka, again, the Gridiron Greats, that are there trying to help the guys we all grew up watching and reading about. Please go online to gridirongreats.org to see how you can get involved.